Guys, guess what we're filming?
This old man had this car that 34 years ago.
Yeah, you know. Among Us.
Stopped crying and walked away from the spot with tears in his eyes. Mobile Games Heroes, Candy Crush, D tier. This game was only fun for the first 10 minutes and then it got repetitive as hell. Like, I don't know.
You're looking for some mobile games that you can play without an internet connection because you're on the travel, you're on the go, or you don't have an internet connection for whatever the reason. So today I'm bringing you 15. Some new, some old, but all very good offline mobile games that you can try if you want. You're looking for some mobile games that you can play without an internet connection.
Okay, guys, 1 minute. Ah, there we go. Yeah, you know damn well we don't or something. As well. Sit back, relax for some hilarious Among Us games.
So long as those injuries did not lead to that man's death. After all, death is the very worst thing for a person can get, and yes, that man has died a few times. But we are looking at the close to mortal wounds that Batman was lucky enough to survive. During this darkest death metal event, Perpetua is trying to remake the universe in her image, and Batman who laughs becomes God and defeats her so that he can recreate the multiverse in his image. And needless to say, while this big fight is going on, the heroes are trying to stop him by fighting and during this one, Batman's right arm cut clean off. This sadly happens off panel, and Batman takes it to the and then later on in the fight, the Wonder Woman gets transformed into a god yet again. She defeats the god version of Batman who laughs, and the universe is returned to a state of normality. And all of the DC heroes and villains are returned to the state they were in before the battle takes place, which of course means that Batman gets his limits. But it is still one of the worst injuries that Batman has suffered. And he also loses his right arm and is quite badly disfigured in the movie cinematic to the video game DC Universe Online. Exactly how Batman is injured like this is not 100% clear, but during a fight with bad guys, Deathstroke takes one off his lasso and catches Batman in it. He then pulls him up like a piñata and hits him with his sword. The Joker sees this and takes issue with it and shoots Batman with a rocket launcher.
What's this? Nobody killed Batman but me.
And where next we see Batman, it's in a war-torn future where Brainiac has all but conquered the Earth and Batman is leading the resistance. And Batman has severe burns on his face and has lost his right arm, which has been replaced with a fancy robot arm that shoots lasers. We don't know for sure how he got these injuries, but most likely it was caused by the rocket that the Joker shot him with. And unlike the other time he loses his arm, this one is permanent.
Oh my god, stop.
In the Hush storyline, Batman suffers a rather severe head injury that sees him needing pieces of his skull removed from his brain, which is a pretty serious injury, I think you'll agree. This happens after one of his grapple lines is snapped and he falls from several stories up straight onto the concrete, and quite frankly, it's a miracle he doesn't die. But thankfully, his childhood friend, Dr. Thomas Elliot, is basically the world's greatest surgeon, and so he is able to perform surgery and save Batman's life, because this surgeon is, quite frankly, unbelievably skilled. And Batman does have a lot of other bruises and broken bones and injuries from this, but it's the pieces of bone need to be removed from the brain that are definitely the worst. Now, after this happens, Batman is of course meant to rest and take it easy so that he has time to recover and heal. But he doesn't, and he just goes straight out to fight crime. In fact, he injuries. But perhaps the worst one was in the Harley Quinn animated TV show. Joker that sees a very large portion of Gotham destroyed. Batman fancy cybernetic batsuit so he can go back to fighting crime. He finds that his injuries are too severe and he can't be Batman. And instead, he has to wait for his body to heal. And I think this is a testament to how severe this injury is. Because, as I literally just said, when he fractured his skull and had pieces of bone removed from his brain, he still continued to be Batman, with virtually no time to heal. So the fact that he cannot be Batman for weeks on end. When he breaks his bones in Batman Brave and Bold, he just uses a fancy batsuit to overcome his limitation. And of course, that's the same thing he tries to do in the Harley Quinn show. And even though Batman the Brave and the Bold was a lighter take on the character, it still goes to show that this injury must have been so much worse if he couldn't just use technology to get over it. Now, of course, Batman has broken a lot of bones over the years, including a few broken spines. Broken back. Now, Batman breaks his back a lot. In fact, he might break his back more times than any other hero living. Ready for his extreme strength. So Bane is able to snap his spine quite easily. The second time, Bane is actually off of the Venom and simply outskills Batman in a fight, something that very much happens. But it happens in the Rebirth comics, and first Bane cracks one of his vertebrae while fighting in a prison, though Batman of course just pops that vertebrae back into place and carries on fighting crime, which is pretty much impossible, but hey, he's Batman. And later on in the story of The Fallen, Bane takes Batman down again, and then takes over Gotham. And of course, Bane also snaps his spine in the live-action film Batman: The Dark Knight Rises.
I was wondering what really was.
And in the video game Batman: Rise of Sin Tzu, if you survive Bane, he snaps your back, killing you. The same is true of the video game Batman: Arkham Asylum, and of course they have the infamous Batman line,
No, Bane. This time I break you.
and in the Batman Arkham Origins game, there are a few times within it that Bane can break Batman's back, especially if it's killing him, or he can just reference it in a fight, doing the back breaking move, but not actually breaking it for real. And in the Telltale Batman video game, one of Batman's deaths again, so many times that Robot Chicken actually did a whole series of sketches of Bane coming in to repeatedly break his spine. It's just happened that much. However, there is one very good occasion in which Batman breaks his back, and it wasn't done by Bane. In the Injustice comic book, Batman fights Superman in the Batcave. Now, as you may remember, in that game there are super pills that allow a person to get superpowers, hence why the Joker becomes bulletproof. These pills first had to be stolen by Batman, and the pills had to be scanned.
Hey, we won on camera.
Lots of signs to make it all make sense. Scanning these super pills, Superman turns up and beats the crap out of Batman. And cuts his spine in half with little to no effort. He's Superman after all. And then he interrogates Batman by pushing down on the spine and torturing Batman for information. That's right, Superman, the paragon of virtue and justice, tortures Batman for information. It's a messed up scene with an absolutely amazing moment where Alfred takes the super pill and then he nuts Superman unconscious in order to save Batman. And Alfred does this because, as we know, he is the ultimate badass. Psychological trauma. Now, some people might not consider this to be an injury, but it very much is, and it definitely needs to be mentioned. Batman Now, of course, as we know, the biggest psychological occurred when he watched his parents gunned down by a criminal when he was just a child. And technically speaking, this is probably the worst injury the Batman has ever endured. Injury that led to Batman being born in the first place, so it has to be on this list. And over the years, he has faced more psychological trauma than I could ever even begin to list. But perhaps the worst occasion was during the Emperor Joker storyline, in which Joker becomes all-powerful and murders and then resurrects and then murders and then resurrects Batman over and over and over again in more and more depraved and torturous ways. And it completely screws Batman up beyond all recognition. After all, one of the deaths has him eaten to death by a pack of vultures. Literally pecked and eaten to death. I mean, that's going to scar anybody. But fortunately for Batman, Superman is a very good friend to have, as he agrees to take Batman's psychological trauma and place it on his psyche. And for some reason, Superman was able to pretty much just shake off the damage. Because he's Superman, I guess, and super therapy and processing grief and trauma at amazing speeds is one of his superpowers. At least this version of Superman can deal with this anyway. Now, Batman has also been exposed to various hallucinogenics, Joker toxins, and other mind-altering chemicals over the years, which has no doubt added to his overall mental damage, which, let's be completely honest, is quite severe at this point. And those are Batman's 5 worst injuries. There are some other pretty bad ones, of course. I mean, I can never list all his injuries here, I'd be here forever. But those are the ones that I consider to be the most severe.
I guess we good. So I literally said I'd watch this one. Let's go. Nearly everybody trusts me. I literally watched it this Monday.
Superman is debatably the most powerful hero in the DC universe, and for good reasons. He is essentially a god and has nearly limitless strength. And on top of that,
Right.
but with that being said, Superman is still technically mortal, and as such, he has still been hurt pretty bad over the years. True, he is crazy powerful.
Engines alive!
And when you have geniuses like Lex Luthor or Brainiac working in ways that hurt the Man of Steel, well, needless to say, Superman has had his fair share of serious wounds. And this video is over the 5 worst injuries that Superman has ever had. Wonder Woman slits his throat. In the Superman story, Sacrifice, Maxwell Lord uses his psychic powers to take over Superman's mind and makes him think that he's fighting supervillains, but he's actually fighting his friends. And after he nearly kills Batman, Wonder Woman desperately tries to take Superman down. But a Superman unleashed is not an easy thing to defeat. So she gouges his eyes with her thumbs, she crushes his eardrums, and finally she slits his throat using her tiara. Of course, being Superman, he was able to survive these injuries. He's got a pretty good healing factor after all. But still, they were pretty severe. And they did eventually manage to free Superman. Wonder Woman puts her lasso of truth on Maxwell Lord and forces him to release Superman from his control. But Maxwell says that he will take control again and use Superman to kill others. Maybe Batman, maybe Lois Lane, maybe even Wonder Woman. And since he's under the control of the lasso of truth, he's unable to lie. And he says that the only way that Wonder Woman can stop him is to kill him. So Wonder Woman does. She snaps his neck and murders him. And this moment is a very important. So everyone in the DC world knows that Wonder Woman is secure. It was a huge moment in the DC universe. A pretty dark moment for Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman also fights Superman in Duel to the Death in the Injustice universe. Now, it's a bit of a long story, but during the fight, she again gouges his eyes. But this time, she also breaks his arm as well. Now, the fight gets cancelled before he might die, of course, as it always goes in comics. But still, breaking Superman's arm is a pretty impressive feat. Superman is blinded. Now, this happens on at least 2 separate occasions. The first in the TV show Lois and Clark and the Adventures of Superman. Now, the story's a little convoluted, but basically, a super genius called Dr. Faraday has made an amazing device that can transmit knowledge and information directly into someone's brain using a Greek font. And the bad guys want it for themselves. Who wouldn't want it? But Dr. Faraday says no and runs away. And unfortunately, the bad guys end up killing him, but not before Dr. Faraday is able to hide the device on Lois Lane. The bad guys want to retrieve it from Lois Lane, of course, but Superman is always protecting her. So they create a device that can blind Superman in order to incapacitate him. And it works amazingly, completely blinding Superman. And the bad guy was able to abduct Lois Lane, and she manages to strike a deal with them. They give her the device, and they give Superman back his sight. Of course, it doesn't really work out that way, and these deals with the bad guys never do work out right. But fortunately, and reverse its beam to fix Superman's eyes. And of course, they bring the bad guys to justice. And by justice, I mean Superman blows up the device with his heat vision and blinds both of them permanently. That's what you call karmic retribution right there. And Superman is also blinded in Comics 979. Now in this story, Cyborg Superman and the Eradicator...
Bye bye guys.
General Zod
If it's not for you, goodbye.